T and Sal here on The Fan. A pleasure to be joined by David Wright, a guy who had many Subway Series moments himself. David, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. An exciting week, so I appreciate talking a little baseball.
Yeah, Mets and Yanks, of course, always a big deal. Now, you tell me the truth, and I'm sure you talked about this many times over the years when you were playing and obviously now after the fact, but we talked about this. You know, players sometimes in the moment or coaches want to minimize the impact. How big of a deal in the regular season are these matchups between the Mets and the Yankees?
You know, I think you asked players, and I was the same way when I played, and you asked them, and obviously the series against the Phillies and the Braves are more important standings-wise. But as far as, like, beat-your-chest, ego-type series, this series is fun. It's great. There's a different energy level that the fans, the city, and even the players bring to these games. So, you know, I think it was a bit of a fib when we said that, you know, it's just another game. It doesn't matter, because we want to go out there and put on a good show for our fans. So when they go to work the next day, you know, they have a little bragging rights over the Yankee fans.
Did it feel different, David? The stadiums like Shea versus City and the old Yankee Stadium versus the new one? Because to me, the old Yankee Stadium was always more intimidating, the way right field hung over, just the acoustics. Did it feel different to you?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, you know, with any new stadium, you know, you get closer to the field and it gets a little more corporate, as opposed to, you know, the fans are yelling and screaming and, you know, talking trash, which is always fun for me. But, you know, I got some great memories both at Old Yankee Stadium, at Shea, New Yankee Stadium, at Citi Field. So, but there's just something nostalgic for me. Maybe it's because I was a younger player and it was my first Subway Series, going to the old Yankee Stadium and walking, you know, down the same steps that some of the game's elite and best players ever put a uniform have walked down. And, and the same with Shea. You know, as much as, you know, it got a lot of crap for being, you know, a bit of a dump, but it was our dump, and it was, you know, our memories that we made there. And, you know, I think that's what made it special. So if I had to pick, you know, I would probably take the atmosphere and the intensity and the energy level of the old Yankee Stadium and an old Shea Stadium, but I don't think that takes away too much from
I got you. That's David Wright, of course, BT and Sound on the Fan. You know, we were talking about Mattingly before and some old matchups, like if we go back in time, like Dwight Gooden versus Donnie, or a few other, you know, Seaver versus Mantle. Sal came up with, you know, with Pete's contract coming up, and one of the things that's said a lot about that is that Pete's got a chance to go down as the greatest Mets position player of all time. To me, Dave, that's you. That is you. And I wonder, because like Mattingly, you know, the back issue, the spinal stenosis, it zapped you of power, and you just missed a ton of games. Like, I know you made a lot of money. I know that you're comfortable with your accomplishments, but how often, if ever, do you say to yourself, man, yeah, I was good, but if this didn't happen, I'm a Hall of Famer, or I'm this? Do you think about that a lot?
Well, I appreciate the kind words. You know, I do. And I try not to, but I think it's just the competitor and just the competitive fire inside of me that you can't help but to kind of wonder, what if? And, you know, I think that if you would have asked a 10-year-old me, you know, would you sign up for this type of career and being able to make a living out of playing baseball and getting a chance to be drafted by your favorite team, come up through the minor leagues, contribute, play in a World Series for your favorite team? I would have signed up for that in a heartbeat. But there is part of you that just kind of wonders, like, if you know, I could have stayed a little bit healthy, if I could have kept my back, you know, if I didn't go diving everywhere and hurt my back originally, like, you know, kind of what would have happened. But, you know, if you wonder too much about it, it kind of drives you crazy. But, you know, for me, the thought kind of gets in the back of my head every now and then, especially, you know, when I sit back and watch the games with my 3-year-old now, watching, you know, the Mets play. It kind of brings back these fond memories, but every once in a while it'll kind of be like this what if thought that creeps in the back of your mind. So I'm incredibly blessed and thrilled and thankful for the career that I had, but I think it's only natural every now and then to kind of wonder, what if.
BT and Sal on the Fan. We're talking with former Mets captain David Wright ahead of the Subway Series here in the next couple of days. David, one thing about you and your career, I always, after Piazza, I would always compare the Met players to Piazza as far as the Piazza-like moments. He seemed to have a knack for in the big moment he delivered. And you had a bunch of those yourself. A couple that come to mind off the top of my head here would be the opening night at Citi Field, even though the place was, I mean, come on. That place hurt you, obviously. Hey, I mean, what do you really think of Citi Field, David? You can tell us now. But opening night, you had that big home run. You guys were down. You had the big home run to tie it. Your return in 2015 gives me goosebumps actually thinking about it. You returned off the IL, and Terry Collins, he tells me the story all the time. You went to him, hey, Skip, I don't need to be in the middle of the lineup here or whatever, but I'm back. I just want to fit in. I don't want to hurt the team. He goes, what are you kidding me? I got you in there. You batting third or whatever it was, and you go up there the first at bat, and you hit a freaking bomb into left field. You've been able to capture the moment throughout your career. Against the Yankees, Mariano Rivera, what was it about you, David, that brought the ability to capture some of those moments?
Well, thanks. Let me reiterate one thing. I went up to Terry and told him, don't hit me in the middle of the lineup because I sucked on my rehab assignments. Like I was, hitting like $150 and hitting like kind of sloppy singles all over the place. So, I went up to Terry, to kind of save my own hide and just be like, hey, hide me somewhere in this lineup. Just play me against lefties or something. But, it ended up working out okay. But, it was just, as we talked about before, I think as much as the players don't want to admit it, and I agree with that, I don't think that they should. This shouldn't be, the Mets, you shouldn't be circling the calendars at the beginning of the year wanting, to play the Yankees. It's exciting. The energy level is raised. So you want to go out there and put on a good show for the fans, for those bragging right reasons. So, for some reason, it just, when we played, I loved the atmosphere. I loved the chanting going back and forth. I would try to take it in as much as I could, looking up in the stands and seeing, the pinstripes chanting against the orange and blue. And I just soaked that in, and I loved it so much that I wanted to, be the guy in that big situation against Mariano, one of the best to ever do it, with the game on the line. And I think that it was something that I looked forward to. It was something that I wanted to thrive in that environment. And, fortunately I was able to, come up with a couple big hits in the Subway Series, and to this day are some of the highlights of my regular season was going up against the Yankees a couple times a year.
And David hit 305 against the Yankees, 62 hits, 9 homers, 35 ribbies, 33 runs scored in just 53 games versus the Yankees.
That's pretty incredible. So who's your all-time favorite Mets teammate, Dave? I'm curious.
It kind of depends on which era. We can go era by era. If you
absolutely. Take us through it. Go ahead.
Okay, so early on, Joe McEwing was like my guy.
Super Joe.
Him and Cliff Floyd were like my two guys. Like they were big brothers to me, and they took incredibly good care of me, and I think kind of taught me the ropes of how to be a professional. How to carry yourself, but also, kind of pay your dues, pay your respects to the elders, the guys that came before you, to earn their respect on a team, because I came up on a very veteran team. Then it kind of transitioned. Murphs was my guy, Daniel Murphy. Just saw him in London. We became incredibly close, and then kind of towards the end for me, it was Jake. Jake and I, DeGrom, are still very close, keep in touch. So those would probably be the eras of players that I really got along with. Probably best, Jose, obviously it's a special relationship that goes over, a couple different eras, but those are kind of the guys that come to mind that, I was incredibly close with, during those 15 years.
You mentioned it's on David Wright, of course, former captain, Mets, BT and Sal, how you and DeGrom are still tight. So when he left the Mets, I'm sure you had a sense what he was thinking, but were you surprised he ultimately left?
Was I surprised? I was the side of me that I got to experience spending my entire career in New York and knowing how special that was. I was sad. I wouldn't say I was disappointed, because, guys make decisions for different reasons, whether it's financial, family, location, whatever the case may be. So I completely understood it. And I'd never, ever, because we signed, guys, whether it's Beltran, like we dipped our toes in the free agent market and got guys, because we were the highest bidder. So there's, I don't fault a guy for ever going out there and trying to, make the best financial decision that I possibly can for him and his family. But there was a part of me that was certainly sad because, when you look back on it, the seasons that he had were historic. I mean, it was, trying to think back of a run of, however many years that was, where if he gave up a run, we were kind of looking around going like, what is going on? He must, be having an off night because he gave up a run. I mean, it was crazy, fun to play behind, fun to be a part of. He's an incredible person, an incredible teammate, and a guy that, again, I've grown incredibly close to. So, yes, there's part of me was sad to see him go, but, there's so many other variables that go along with free agency. You never know, kind of what the Mets were thinking. You kind of never know, what the marketplace looked like for him. But he's a guy that no matter what team he plays on, I will always root for because he was an incredible teammate.
David, how much have you thought about having your number 5 retired by the Mets?
Not much. I think that I get asked about it every now and then, and just to be asked about it, I think is an incredible honor. If someday it happens, you get a chance to, be around Straw and Doc and Mike and these other guys, and it's like, it's like a pinch, kind of a pinch me type moment that even talking about it, makes me a little uncomfortable because you're talking about some of the best players ever put the uniform on. And, to even be asked the question is such an incredible honor and humbling because, I've never considered myself in the Mike Piazza or the Darryl Strawberry, upper tier of players, not just for the Mets, but in the game. So, it'd be incredibly cool. But just to even kind of be mentioned in the same breath of those guys is quite the honor.
Yeah, we miss watching you play, man. I got to be honest with you. I'm a Yankees guy. Me and Sal go back and forth all the time, but I loved watching you play. And, the parallels to Mattingly to me were amazing. Unfortunate for both you guys, but, just a ball player, dude. We watch these guys, and some of these athletes today are so amazing, explosive, hitting balls 470 feet, rockets, running 6'2", 60s. But to me, I close my eyes. This is the ultimate compliment, David. I close my eyes. I think of David Wright. I just see a ball player. I see a guy who's dirty, a guy who can pick it at third, a guy who had a rocket, a guy who hit bombs and doubles, just a winner. Just a lot of respect for you, man. I miss watching you play. I mean, you probably one of my all-time favorite Mets, and there's not a long list. You're on it.
Well, I'll take that as the ultimate compliment. Anytime you get a compliment from a Yankee, that's something that you take to heart. So let me get this straight, though. Like, I didn't have quite the tools. I couldn't hit bombs, and I couldn't run very fast. But other than that, I was a pretty decent player.
Hey, man, if that's what you take out of it, you've been retired too long. You haven't been around the New York media. That was as good a compliment as I could throw you, Dave.
Yeah,
I hear you.
All right, Dave, I got a couple before we go
start
here.
Kissing his ass?
No, I'm not. As a matter of fact, something I always wanted to bring up. And look, I loved you as a player, and I do think that I don't know if I would say you're the greatest Met position player of all time, but no question to me, you should have the number 5 retired up there for multiple reasons. What you meant to this organization, the way you carried yourself, your performance on the field, all the above. You were the perfect New York Met. Now, with that being said, 2006 postseason, you're facing Flores, I believe, for the Cardinals, Game 7, bottom of the 8th inning. After that moment, I think I started to call you the Golden Boy because I was upset that you didn't get it. La Russa left a lefty in there to face you in 2006. You remember this at bat that I'm talking about?
I actually don't.
So, and it wasn't a big deal, but just you were expected a lot in the postseason. You were, and I know you had a rough go of it a little bit in the 2006 after the Dodgers series. I think you performed well in the Dodgers series, but not against the Cardinals. Do you remember what it was like performing in that first postseason in New York?
Of course. And I mean, you hit it right on the head. I mean, I think that there's a gray area for me that once you get too jacked up or you get the adrenaline flowing too much, it becomes harmful. And I think that's what I learned. The Dodgers series, the adrenaline was through the roof. I mean, running out onto the field for the first time and just the electricity in the building. I mean, to this day, it still makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. But, I was able to control it, I think, maybe a little better. I got off to a great start in the Dodger series against Derek Lowe in game one, and we were playing well as a team. And then early on in the Cardinal series, had a couple good at-bats where I didn't kind of get the result that I wanted, and I think I started pressing. And that's the worst thing you can do is when you get the adrenaline flowing, and then you start pressing, wanting to do more than just take what they give you. Like if they're pitching you away, just take your single to right field. Instead, I wanted to be the guy in that situation that hits the two-run homer or the guy that's trying to kind of do too much. And I think I started pressing a little bit. So, yeah, it was a great learning lesson for me in trying to somewhat control your emotions during the playoffs because, everything becomes a big at-bat. During the regular season, you have so many at-bats that you try to go up there and you try to grind out each one. In the playoffs, that's incredibly important, to grind out each pitch, grind out each at-bat. And I think I kind of lost that concept when I started pressing a little too much in that Cardinal series.
And maybe La Russa knew it. Here's the specifics of that inning. It's one that always stuck with me. And again, because I held you to a higher standard, Beltran walks. They take Suppan out of the game. Jeff Suppan. They take Suppan.
So I did have an RBI single against Suppan earlier in that game.
Oh.
Okay, in Game 7. So you drove in the one run. Okay, now here's the big spot. They bring in the lefty.
Is that somewhat of an apology or not really?
They bring in the lefty Flores to face Delgado, strike him out.
Uh-huh.
I was stunned sitting there at the upper level that they left in the lefty Flores to face you, thinking that you can't leave a lefty in against D-Dub. He's going to hammer one. And then in that spot, 1-1 Game 7, I need a base hit. I need a gapper. I need something from David Wright.
Yep.
And you struck out. You struck out, and then he got Sean Green to ground out. Now, obviously, you weren't the reason why they lost the game, but I just remember. Now, I'm comparing you in my mind. This is 2006, fresh off of Piazza-like moments. Guy on first, they're leaving in a lefty reliever to face David Wright.
Oh, listen, you don't have to backtrack at all. Like in my mind, I should have done left. If they're leaving a lefty in, and that's one of the guys that I always like to try to make pay because I always felt like it was a dig when Tony did stuff like that. Like, for whatever reason, we had this, even though we didn't play them, we played them a lot in spring training. And, like, if we would, like, nick Albert with, like, a changeup or something, I'd get one in the middle of my back every single time. So I always wanted to stick it to Tony so badly. So that actually, you've kind of ruined my day now telling me that, that I disappointed you back in 2006.
Yeah, I've been holding on to this for almost 20 years.
Let's just be a public, formal apology that I'm sorry for letting you down in 2006.
I mean, David, it's just after I prop him up, too.
Yeah, David, I accept your apology, and I also want to say I'm sorry for calling you the golden boy after that in a condescending way. I love you forever. I look forward to taking my daughter to the game where your number 5 is retired by the way.
And it's going to get retired at some point. Starting to wrap things up. David Wright, BT and Sound on the Fan. So, all right, I don't know your level of believability, if I will, or if you will, for the this current Mets team in terms of what they could accomplish. But I'm going to bestow upon you, David, the one move, one position you could seriously upgrade at the trade deadline for this current team. What would I know you're watching with your daughter? You said that the other before. What is the move that you would do for these Mets?
Well, I think we need Senga back, and we need the Senga from last year back, and I think that could probably be the biggest kind of trade line acquisition, that we can have. I think that when I watch the games, everybody's looking for starting pitching, but if we could somehow pair up a healthy Senga with another frontline starting pitching, I think that could be pretty scary. Assuming that Senga is healthy. I think the offense, it's been a little bit inconsistent. But as you're seeing now, when this offense goes, it goes. Like, it's kind of scary how deep this is when you got the length of the lineup and you have, Alvy doing what he's doing, kind of down in the lineup. You got the guys at the top of the order getting on base for, Pete, and JD's been a godsend. So I think that if it was me and, there's zero connection in the baseball office, pitching for me is what kind of puts you over the top and you become that solidified playoff team.
I got you. And that's pretty much what most people, I know Sal says that. I get it. Are you buying Vientos? I mean, I know the numbers are really good. He's starting to go around the league, and he's going to make adjustments to their adjustments. We know how that goes as a young hitter. I don't know if he's ever going to be an above-average fielder, but from in the batter's box, do you fully believe in Vientos?
Yeah, I mean, if he's playing the role that he's playing now, where it's not necessarily like, you have the big boys in the middle of the lineup that are proven RBI guys and run production guys, and then you sprinkle in, Vientos a little behind them for sure. I mean, what other lineup can you say has a guy hitting 300 that's hitting for power, driving in runs, that's going to be hitting in the 5-6 hole, in the lineups, and with Alvy down there as well. I mean, it's I just think that it's the lineup is deep. There's guys where, you just don't feel like it's like, okay, let's get to him because he's an easy out. I mean, I think that it's just that the depth is really, really good. And, forget about the kind of inconsistency of the first,
well, McNeil's an easy out. Let's correct that. McNeil's an easy out.
Okay, but he's got a proven track record. So what I would say is give him a chance, because guys that have track records typically get to their numbers over the course of a long year. So, what I would say is give him a chance in the second half to let him go do his thing. I think what he needs more than anything is to get a couple hits, get a little confidence back. From what I see from Jeff McNeil is you need those types of guys in the lineup too, those grinder type players that can go up there, put the ball in play when the offense is struggling and we have, some guys that'll strike out. McNeil is going to put the ball in play. And sometimes you need that in the lineup. So what I would say is just, let's see what happens in the second half before we start making too crazy of adjustments. And, the front office has done a great job in going out and getting Iglesias that has played, terrific. So, I think that let's give it a chance. The lineup doesn't concern me. If that's, bottom line to me is the lineup doesn't concern.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, David. Last one. I know how much you love it in New York, and we talk about the Subway Series coming up. That's why I want to have you on, so we do appreciate your time. Did you take less money to remain a Met?
Well, I mean, I'll never find out. I mean, according to, my agents, but, your agents are typically your biggest, hype men or women, and they were not thrilled, I think. I mean, they were happy for me and they knew that this is what I wanted, but I never tested free agency and I never wanted to test free agency because this is the place that I want to be. As that has been shown to me dozens and dozens and dozens of times that, every time, like we just talked about, every time that I failed as a New York Met, the organization, the fan base, the city always had my back. It was always walking around the next day. Yeah, you were going to get some constructive criticism, but you were going to get a pat on the butt and say, hey, let's get him tonight. And that's what I loved about this city is that I grew up. I was a child when I was a Met. I grew up to become an adult in this organization. And from day one, this city and this fan base had my back. And there was nothing else I wanted to experience after I experienced that. So I never wanted to test free agency. My agents knew that. And therefore, when the Mets wanted to discuss an extension with a year left on my deal, I was all ears and I wanted to get something done.
Yeah, and that's why Met fans love you to this day. David, last one. Why'd you throw out Syndergaard's lunch?
you know how you say sometimes, how you've read, like when you go to prison, you pick out the biggest guy and you just knock him out.
Yeah.
That's what you do. When you're supposed to be like one of the leaders on the team, you pick out the biggest guy in there and you try to knock him out. And I don't think that would have happened. I think I would have got pounded pretty good. But sometimes you gotta set the parameters for these youngins. You know what I mean? Even though that he probably has me by 50 pounds of muscle and towers above me. Sometimes you just have to roll the dice and take your chances that he's not going to just whoop up on me in front of my whole team.
David,
that's awesome.
You are the man. And to further what BT said before, I miss watching you play. It was a privilege. Nobody loved being a New York Met more than David Wright. And I know maybe we're years away or whatever, but I really do look forward to the day where you take your rightful spot amongst the greatest of all time in the franchise with that number 5 being hung up to the rafters at Citi Field. Thanks so much for your time, David. We appreciate it.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Got the blood flowing again. Got the adrenaline going. So let's go Mets, and thanks for having me.
There you go.
Nice.
David Wright.
He's on board, baby.
He's the man.
He's the best position player in Mets history. Hey. I don't care what anybody tells me. He had every tool. David Wright was, and if his back, I know it did go out. So if his back doesn't go out, he's going to wind up with 2,500 hits, if not more. There was nothing he couldn't do. Steal 30 bases, 20, sure. Hit 30, sure. Gold Glove defense at third, sure.
Played, yeah, right.
Played
exactly.
every day before he went down. 35, 40 doubles, sure. 315, 320 average, sure.
Had big moments.
Yeah, I mean, reliable leader. To me, David Wright was the best position player they ever had.